I think if I hear you call me Becky one more time, six-pack, I'm gonna pop your tops. All six of them.
Who are you?
Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another review. There's another paid request, this time from Lucas. Very generous guy. Thank you so much for that. For those interested in requesting pretty much any type of videos, topics, reactions, reviews, commentaries, re-reviews, what have you, lists, out of blueness, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. And this time he wanted me to talk about 6 episodes from Spider-Man, the animated series from 1994. Now, before I get into these 6 episodes, which pretty much the common link is they have the character Hobgoblin. Hobgoblin was voiced by Mark Hamill, which I will say it does at times sound like he's doing the Joker, but again, interesting to have Mark Hamill on this show. Now, I do like this cartoon. I grew up with the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. I guess the rights, for some reason, in the U.S., Disney, they don't want to do anything with Spider-Man, this show, to put on an official DVD or Blu-ray. I believe at one time it was released overseas. I don't know if it's in print nowadays. But I do remember watching this back in the day. Actually, I'm trying to think if it was reruns or if it was taped on I think it was taped on a VHS tape. Because my aunt would have a tendency to do that. Because back in the day, on a farm, middle of nowhere in Iowa, we only had 4 channels. ABC, PBS, CBS, and then another form of CBS, which had the same shows as the other CBS, except the news programs were different. So it didn't have Fox, didn't have NBC. A lot of these shows, X-Files, Simpsons, even, this show, my aunt would send VHS tapes because she had cable. So I have to thank her for a lot of this stuff I was able to see back in the day. And what was nice about the show is that it did treat Spider-Man fairly seriously. It tried to do as best as it could be fair to the comic books, and the way the characters looked, and they had some nice voice actors. Hank Azaria, very interesting choice for Eddie Brock. Venom, I believe Ed Asner played J. Jonah Jameson. He was really nice. I loved Christopher Daniel Barnes as the voice of Spider-Man and Peter Parker. I thought he had it perfectly, and I remember for so many years when I read Spider-Man comics, that's the voice I would picture, is Christopher's voice from this cartoon. I would picture that in my head when I read Spider-Man comics. Even to this day, I would technically say, if someone were to ask who's my favorite Spider-Man actor, it would be Christopher Daniel Barnes. Not a live-action actor. It would be, technically this Spider-Man would be my favorite Spider-Man. Now granted, in retrospect with the show, as I talked about these 6 episodes, it did lose a little bit of its luster for me watching it again. But I still liked it. I liked the voice cast. I liked the music, especially the opening. Radio, like the little Aerosmith intro. Radioactive spider blood. Sometimes, weirdly enough, maybe it's just me, the animation seemed laddie. I don't know how else to put it. There's certain moments where, like, I'll cut to a person doing like this. Like they're trying to react, but the anime just did like... And sometimes with the animation, I don't know how else to put it. Not slow, but I keep thinking of the word laddie. I don't know what it is. It didn't look as vibrant as the X-Men cartoon in the 90s. Or definitely not as, I don't want to say sophisticated, but well-toned as the Batman show from the 90s. Well, I would say like Batman and X-Men, they seem like better-looking shows compared to Spider-Man. I don't know what the deal is, because even one of these episodes have the X-Men in it, and it seemed like the X-Men moved a bit more, and the colors, well, like I said, a little bit more vibrant in their cartoon than in the Spider-Man. I don't know what the deal was. I don't know if it's the way it was animated, if there was some technique they were doing that really doesn't hold up the... A lot of times it's fine, but there are times where it's just a bit off. I don't know how else to put it. But yeah, I do like Spider-Man's sense of humor, the Spider-Man, the monologues that he does, the narration, which a lot of times he did in the comics, incorporating that in the cartoon. Yeah, I think Christopher Daniel Barnes did that fairly well, trying to have Spider-Man be relatable. He is a man. He's not just a fucking 10, 12, 15-year-old, 17-year-old. He's actually a man. Lo and behold, Spider-Man be a fucking man. Mary Jane, I like the voice of Mary Jane. She was not irritating. She was not annoying. She wasn't Kirsten Dunst. Jimmy, love me. Being a bitch. She actually was Mary Jane, not whoever the hell this Zendaya, whatever the hell her name is, in Homecoming and Far From Home. I mean, the voice work is very solid. It was cool when you watch the show how many characters they incorporated to it. Like the Punisher appeared, Blade appeared, not in these episodes, but Blade appeared in a few. The Punisher had an appearance, like as a Kingpin. Kingpin's actually in quite a few of these episodes. Carnage, Venom, Iron Man. I think Robert Hayes voiced Iron Man. He appears in one little bit here as voice of Tony Stark. I'm like, is that Robert Hayes from Airplane? As Iron Man? That's pretty cool. The X-Men, Wolverine. That's what I mean. It was cool to see the appearances of all these characters throughout the show. I thought, okay, that makes it fun to see what would happen next, sort of. And there would be times where they would have a storyline go through 3 or 4 or 5 episodes, so it would have a bit more time to fully tell the story. And I thought it did a nice job establishing Peter Parker as a guy who doesn't always get the best breaks, and he's got to be torn between being Spider-Man and fuck up his school life, fuck up his home life, Aunt May getting hurt. Uncle Ben is part of it, which he's non-existent now in the new movies. That's funny. Uncle Ben's like one of the most important fucking aspects of Spider-Man. Yeah, let's take him out. Because we're tired of saying... You don't have to say the line, if that's the case. With more power, with power, great power comes great responsibility. But it's also part of Spider-Man. I hate to be a bearer of bad fucking news. Sorry, it's part of the deal. Not saying you have to do the origin story again, but you can have flashbacks. Peter Parker fishing with Uncle Ben or something. Hell, he even did that in this show. Fuck's sake. Although, I don't like the fact that I didn't realize this when I first saw it back in the day, but noticing a lot now that they didn't let him punch. They didn't let Spider-Man punch. The censors and such will let Batman punch because, oh, that's more fantastical. What? Yeah, because the environment is like 1930. I'm like, fuck. Censors don't make sense. So Batman can punch, but Spider-Man can't punch. That did get old, not being able to see him punch. Because there's so many times of using the web, using the web, using the web, using the web. It's like, I like to see him, yeah, sometimes you want to see Spider-Man punch a motherfucker. Jump kick a motherfucker. You do want to see that. As much as I talk about to be or not to be Maguire Spider-Man, he did punch. I gotta give it that. I gotta give it, stuff like that. In Spider-Man 2, he was punching the shit out of Doc Ock. At least he was doing that. Give credit where credit is due. But there are times I just punch the motherfucker. Now, getting back to the 6 episodes, Hobgoblin Part 1, Norman Osborn, who would go to be Green Goblin, he hires Hobgoblin, played by Mark Hamill, to kill the Kingpin. Like I say, it's always nice to hear Mark Hamill. It does come off as kind of a very Joker-esque type of voice, but at least it's still nice to hear it. The voice of Kingpin I liked. I recognize the actor. He played... Not many people know Jumpin' Jack Flash, but I do. He was the character Archer Lincoln. He was a guy in the limo that Whoopi Goldberg's talking to. And Whoopi's like, what do you mean dead? 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 The guy she's talking to is Archer Lincoln. That's the guy who's the voice of the Kingpin. As well as he was on the TV show Soap for quite a few years. He did a nice job with the voice. During this episode, you have Harry Osborn, the son of Norman, offers Peter Parker to live with him at college, and Peter wants to do it, but he's unsure because he wants to make sure Aunt May is taken off. Like, that she'll be well, she'll be fine. Again, some of the humor of Spider-Man, like when he's fighting the Hobgoblin, and he catches on to the hang glider. Oh, this is some flight. No peanuts? No Stallone movie? So the fact that Spider-Man references Sylvester Stallone, I thought that was pretty cool. And the show does have some nice heart to it. Aunt May, they make the character very sweet. In the episode, she gets hurt, and Peter Parker's like, I'm always going to be here for you, and... Actually, I think, yeah, I mean, that's before she gets hurt, as he's going to head off to college. They work well together. It shows, because that's one of the things of Peter Parker. He loves his Aunt May. He wants to make sure Aunt May is safe and sound. Hobgoblin, he's a character that likes to change alliances. He's with Norman to kill Kingpin, but then Kingpin hires him. Again, sometimes the animation does feel like it's laggy. I don't know how else to put it. Harry Osborn gets kidnapped. There's some bits of action with Spider-Man. Like he's avoiding flying saws and smart bombs. You think he gets blown up, but you get to part 2. He's not. He avoids the bombs, takes out the whole building. Man, this country's with smaller arsenals. And it's more about Hobgoblin being a dickhead, changing alliances. Kingpin realizes that, fucks him over. Hobgoblin's like, well, I got a better hang glider, so I'm going to fuck up your place. So Norman Osborn and Kingpin join alliances. They lead Spider-Man to Hobgoblin's lair, so he's able to kick Hobgoblin's ass. Saves Harry Osborn. And listen, the action is not... When you compare it to like Batman did a better job with action seeming a bit more exciting. Because again, Batman's able to do more. Like the way Hobgoblin gets taken out, not taken out, but for this episode. Yeah, Spider-Man's on like a smokestack. He just moves out of the way and the hang glider hits and skips into the water until the next time. So, I mean, it was fine storyline-wise to show a bit of Peter Parker and Aunt May and Mary Jane being helpful, staying with Aunt May. You know, she's not a bitch. Making, you know, Mary Jane not a bitch was nice. Like, this is the Mary Jane I think of. This is the type of Mary Jane that literally in one of the comics, to cheer him up, she's like, hey, you're a photographer. Let's make some photos of our own. Takes her clothes off and they make photos of her own. That's Mary Jane. Like, this is the Mary Jane that's more my type of Mary Jane. And not Mary Jane. People don't believe me, but I've never done that Mary Jane. But this Mary Jane, yeah. So again, it just, because of limitations what they can do action-wise, I think that does hurt episodes when you watch them again, but it's still fun. Nice. The character itself of Spider-Man is still intact. What he believes in, his morals, his judgments, the sense of humor they're trying to do with him trying to talk himself out of situations. Again, kind of like you would read in the comics and him thinking in his head. That works fairly well. Then you have the Mutant Agenda and Mutant's Revenge, another two-parter, which Hobgoblin is a part of this as well, but you have the X-Men in there. At this point in the show, Spider-Man, his DNA was changing, and I know at one point he got like extra arms, and that if he changes more, he'll be like part spider. I believe that was a reference to the comics. I do remember that happening in the comics. I forget which issues. This is the thing. They did try to get a lot of... Kind of like the 2003 Ninja Turtles did, trying to reference the comics. This did with its comics. Which was appreciative. But since his DNA is changing, let me go see a guy who knows about mutants. Go to Xavier's mansion. And this is what I mean, like, if you watch the X-Men cartoon and then you watch them here, you see that their color is a bit duller. And, like, the animation seems a less stellar. Again, it makes it a bit disappointing with the limitation of what they could do with action, where, oh, he's going to fight the X-Men. Well, all he does is shoot his web at them. It'd be nice to, okay, just shoot a web, but he punches one, kicks one, you know, doesn't really do any of that. Which, you know, it sucks. Again, just then runs off. Kind of lame. And even when gets to the danger zone, and there's the sentinels for the danger zone, he just gets on top, webs one, webs them. Imagine Empire Strikes Back, but to the heads. Why can't you even say that? Just he gets on one, wraps around it. I just like... Without his webs, he'd be nothing. That's what it seems like with Spider-Man. That's one of my big nitpicks about this show. I will say watch it again. But it's cool to see Spider-Man with the X-Men. It's cool that they give a bit character to Beast, who feels Spider-Man's plight and wants to help him. So Beast goes after Spider-Man, and then Wolverine, like, what's going on with Beast, goes after Beast. I did get a nice remembrance of Uncle Ben. You know, Uncle Ben saying, hey, you can do anything as long as you don't give up on yourself. And Spider-Man's like, you always did believe in me, Uncle Ben. And that's what I'm talking about. That's part of his moral fiber of Spider-Man. I'm sorry, that's not accomplished with Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. With the limited amount of time they had, hell, the limited amount of time they knew each other, what they met briefly in Civil War, under ruse. Homecoming took place like right after, and then didn't get a call for months. Iron Man gives him like a and then Infinity War, whatever. He helps out, he dies, he comes back, and then Robert Downey Jr. dies. Yeah. I just... At least with your brain, Uncle Ben, okay, they grew up since he was a little boy to when that unfortunate thing happened where he let the robber go, and which was also part of his moral fiber of, I wasn't responsible. I let this guy fucking go. That guy went on to kill my Uncle Ben, who was my father growing up many years. Great power comes great responsibility. Because of that, what happened there, that's why he makes certain decisions. That is an important part of his fucking character. Marvel. I wanted to like the new Spider-Man movies. I did. Because I want to love a Spider-Man film. That's why I get this schizophrenic thing at times. But I do think some of the cartoons, what was the one I saw a year or two ago? Was it Spectacular Spider-Man? That was actually pretty decent. Even the one that lasted a year with Neil Patrick Harris as Spider-Man. The new Spider-Man, it was like on MTV. Granted, the CG animation doesn't hold up best, but I actually liked that show. That was a fun one. I wish it lasted more than one season. I do think the cartoons do Spider-Man better than the movies. In my opinion. Also, what's nice is that David Warner has an voice appearance. Oh, he's going to tear the mutants, but no, he's really going to kill them all. Beast is taken. Wolverine, hey, Spidey, what the fuck happened to Beast? They're ready to fight. Go to the next episode. Spider-Man and Wolverine. It's cool to have Spider-Man and Wolverine team up, but again, their fights don't really add up to much because they can't do much actual fighting. Wolverine has adamantium claws, so you're avoiding. You can't have Spider-Man punch. Although if Spider-Man punch Wolverine, would it hurt his arm because he's punching the metal? Adamantium? Doesn't matter because they don't get to fight much. There's really not much to the fight that I can think of to really talk about, oh yeah, this is a great fight. Not a whole lot. But I mean, Spider-Man at least has, some lines. You ever thought of seeing a manicurist about those things? Oh, subtlety isn't your strong point. And Wolverine's like, can't even spell the word. I love the voice actor of Wolverine. From the X-Men cartoon. They bring him back for this. I always love that. The guy did a great job voicing Wolverine. Easily one of the best voices to ever have for that character. And, the costume works very well on Wolverine on that cartoon. I would say cartoon-wise, that's my favorite version of Wolverine. I wish they could have taken that costume character, that voice, and really make him go buck wild and like nowadays they would do like an R-rated, like they've done with Batman, do an R-rated anime movie. I wish they did that with this Wolverine. They never did though. At least I did not for this. I mean, they did the Wolverine Hulk versus Wolverine versus Hulk, Wolverine versus Hulk versus Wolverine, Hulk versus Thor. But it wasn't this voice. Anyway, going off tangent. But it's cool to see them work together and then fighting the guards. Again, the fights can't be too much Sally. Maybe that's the thing, is that Spider-Man's superhuman, so maybe they're going, well, if he punches someone, it'll break their fucking jaw off. But Spider-Man has punched people and he holds back. That's the point of it, but whatever. I think Wolverine has his claws, but he can't do much. Which is kind of the drawback with Wolverine in a cartoon fashion. Having these claws and not being able to do much with them. Again, you can do it in the comics, but not in cartoons. Wolverine seems a bit dumber of a character in this. Tis that there's Beast held hostage. It's clearly electrified. He jumps. I'm like, Wolverine's a bit smarter than that. I don't think he's that dumb in the comics. But hey, yeah, do it for the show. I do like the line when Spider-Man grabs the both of them and Beast is like, hold on to us. Okay, but whatever you do, don't make me laugh. I thought that was a genuinely funny line. And it's nice to have David Warner. Hobgoblin's there because he's fighting the David Warner character and blah blah blah. They get out of it. This girl who is a telekinetic, she helps out too. David Warner gets some gunk on him, turns to a giant beast. And at least it does show Spider-Man's intellect. Because Peter Parker is a very smart guy. He's a very intelligent guy, which they have not really showcased in the new movies. So far, what I've seen, they haven't. I just thought, well, he did make the web, but then it seems like they've forgotten that he is a pretty smart guy, and is able to, with Beast's help, to get David Warner back to normal for frequencies and antenna. Like I said, the two-part, it was fun to see Spider-Man join with the X-Men, and especially Wolverine. I just wish they didn't have the censors limitations so that they could really go all out in the action. Because I would say the action department is sadly one of the more lacking elements of the show. Which you can see because we look at Batman, and they have a bit more freedom, so it makes the action scenes a bit more, with the guns and all, a bit more free and a bit more exciting. Plus, I do think the animation is a bit better in that. The other two episodes is The Spot and Goblin War. They also feature the Hobgoblin. The Spot, you have this character, Dr. Owen, who is fired by Tony Stark. Very brief appearance in that episode. Voiced by Robert Hayes from Airplane, which was cool. The guy was making portals. Things go crazy. They go from all over. He gets sucked in. The portals become part of him. And he wants, he tries to control it. And then he steals money to get funding for research. But then he's also sadly working with the Kingpin, who has the Dr. Owen, as he calls himself, the Spot. I guess you would say he has him shit out of luck. I gotta do this, otherwise I was going to hurt the woman I love. I like the idea that he can control these portals, so it makes certain moments a bit more creative. To be able to teleport from one to the other, or teleport here, throw a punch, and the punch trying to get Spider-Man. Or teleport Spider-Man through the portals. Spider-Man ultimately is able to use that against the guy. But the guy's not an all-out evil guy. He gives his own life to stop the portals and save people. So, it's a character that's a bit of a redemptive arc to him. I believe the Spot was in the comics. I didn't read the comics he was based on. I mean, he's called the Spot. I'm like, okay, that's a bit weird. But watching the episode made a bit more sense. I didn't mind the voice actor that played him. Like I said, I guess the other thing is that Felicia Hardy, who's Black Cat, she's going out with this guy, and I could tell from the voice, oh, that's probably Hobgoblin. Because that sounds like Mark Hamill. And lo and behold, the next episode, Goblin War, it is Mark Hamill. Who, in this normal, without the costume, was going out with Felicia Hardy because you're rich, and you're this, and you're that. Although I don't know why Felicia Hardy was so much a victim, because I'm like, you're Black Cat. Why don't you just try to self-defense, kick his ass? But what do I know? In Goblin War, there's this time dilation accelerator, kind of related to what in the spot that stuff was going on with the portals. Hobgoblin wants it. You do have Norman Osborn as a Green Goblin appear, so it's cool to see Hob versus Green Goblin. Back and forth battle. That was cool to see. I will say the Green Goblin stuff seems less cringeworthy here than with Willem Dafoe. Because they do the bit where Norman Osborn is talking to his reflection and going back and forth, but it just seemed less cringy and less goofy compared to what it was there. Plus it helps that Green Goblin, it actually looks like the Green fucking Goblin. Which they were going to do, because there's footage, but for some reason, nah, let's not do it. Why? Just because. Like I said, Spider-Man, he does help out. I would say really the episode is more memorable because of the two goblins fighting each other. As a guy who played Spider-Man games, and the Spider-Man game I played the most was Maximum Carnage on Super Nintendo, and I remember playing the arcade game as well back in the day, where you could be Spider-Man, Black Cat, I believe, and was it Hawkeye? It's been forever since I've played it. I can't remember. But yeah, I remember that being fun. Anyway, back to this. Again, I'm wondering why Felicia Hardy, finds out her boyfriend's Hobgoblin. She should be able to fight him off. He's not a superpower guy. She should be able to kick his ass. Unless she wasn't Black Cat yet, it's been a while since I've seen the show. Maybe she wasn't Black Cat. I would assume so, because... And if that's... I don't know why. Like I said, watching these episodes, I would say the stories and the characters, the interpretations of Spider-Man, Mary Jane, the villains, that's what makes the show work. Sadly, they, maybe in a good way in the long run, but at the same time, I wish the action was as good as, the story, the characters were. For what it is for a Saturday morning cartoon, when I say story and characters. I should say that. Because the action at times leaves a little bit to be desired. Like I said, if you're comparing to the action in X-Men cartoon, or the action in the Batman cartoon. Like Spider-Man action, like I say, is either him just webbing. Or maybe to outthink himself in a situation and out of a situation, which is nice to see, but sometimes you just want to see him punch and kick. Sadly, that wasn't the case, but it was still fun to revisit. I forgot Mark Hamill was in the show. This is kind of like the little journey of Hobgoblin from hired hand to... By the end of Goblin War, he does get arrested, and... Bye-bye, Hobby. And Spidey does destroy that time dilation accelerator device, but, Goblin made it over with his portal, and he'll rain some hell and high water later on the show. And this is the thing about the show that was annoying, is that it ended on a fucking cliffhanger. Because it was Mary Jane was kidnapped, and then she came back, but it wasn't the real Mary Jane, it was a clone. Then Madam Web says, oh, the real Mary Jane is alive. But we never found out what the fuck really happened to her. And then you had this fucking... For some reason, oh, let's do Spider-Man Unlimited, where he goes to the future. And then that ended on a fucking cliffhanger. So there's no ending to that either. It's just fucking stupid. So you never really got a full fucking ending to the show, which is fucking lame. I'm surprised they didn't do like a movie. You know, like the Spider-Man animated movie based on the show. Like Batman had Batman Master of the Phantasm, you had Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker, but Marvel didn't really do that, or they didn't really do that with this. Like, it's not like you had an X-Men animated movie or Spider-Man animated movie. I don't know why. They were successful enough, they got quite a few seasons, but then, nah, fuck it's done. Oh well, tough titty. Well, fuck you. So yeah, I do like the show. It lost a little bit of its luster since I last saw it, but I still liked it. And still, despite him not being able to punch, despite how some of the animation's a bit laggy, and I wish the action was better, honestly. I do like the interpretation, and I still feel the seriousness and respect that Spider-Man's given. And again, with all the characters you get to see from the comics represented fairly well in a respectful manner, in a way it's refreshing to see. Refreshing to see. So overall, still like it. I would still pick it as my favorite animated show in the long run. In regards to Spider-Man. I would say it's my favorite. Because I will say, in all fairness, the Spectacular Spider-Man, I believe that did its action a bit better. I gotta admit, that did a better job with his action. So maybe it's also nostalgia that makes me pick this above it. But maybe it's because, you know, all the characters and all the stuff in there. The voices. But I guess if I bring that up because people go, what do you mean by the action? You look at Spectacular Spider-Man's action. That's what I mean by, like, the action is a bit more fuller, Spider-Man be able to do more than just web. If that makes sense. But overall, like I said, I do like the show. So we'll see you guys later. Take care. Bye-bye.